All right.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Maryann from Revealing Light Tarot and Dr. Vicki Skirbo here joining me.
Hi, everyone.
We're going to take a look at 2020 and 2021. We're going to take a look at what lessons we learned in 2020. What were the endings there, Vicki, that we needed to actualize in order to get these new beginnings? We also want to look at what happens in 2021, because it's not like magically in the new year everything is okay. It's not like that, and Vicki has some thoughts on that. But it is a start. It is a fantastic start because it is a beginning. It is a beginning of something, but we have to nurture that beginning. We have to grow it, and we have to, make it, see it through. But I do feel, this 2020 was just so difficult for so many, and it is life-changing for so many as well. So what do you see in the astrology? When we go back to the very beginning of the year, the 12th of January 2020, that stellium there, that powerful stellium in the 8th house in Capricorn, endings and beginnings. What do you see in that chart, Vicki?
Yeah, so let me just make sure I'm looking at the right chart here. Yeah, okay. So this was the 12th of January. And we actually, things really started at the very end of December. I don't know if you remember, but there was a solar eclipse in Capricorn on the 26th of December. And then then we had a lunar eclipse, and then we had this happen. So there was an eclipse that sort of started this. And eclipses always are sort of a wild card. You're never really sure what's going to happen. We know that there's going to be changes. And those eclipses were at the south node of the moon. Just like the eclipse that's coming up in a few days is at the south node of the moon. And south node eclipses are always about releasing something. So we knew that something had to go. And we look at this chart and we go, oh my goodness, right? So we have this stellium, as it were, in Capricorn. This chart is for Washington, D.C.
Yeah, my chart, I used a Washington, D.C. chart, but my time was 2 p.m. So that's why I'm getting the 8th house, you're getting the 10th house. But the stellium there was just so powerful. So sorry to interrupt. I just thought I'd clear that up.
No, that's okay. Well, in this chart, we have Mars in the 8th house. So in Sagittarius.
Yeah.
So I could connect that if I wanted to yep. Like moving forward on your beliefs, right? And then everybody who believed one thing was doing one thing. People who believed another thing were doing another thing. And that could lead to a lot of problems, right? A lot of death, 8th house. So we could see that here. But we're looking at the 10th house up here with Pluto and Saturn making a conjunction. That doesn't happen very often. The last time it happened was 1982. And that was in Libra, the latter degrees of Libra. And this is always about a restructuring of power. There's always a restructuring of power in this. But there's also often sickness associated and plagues and such that are associated with this conjunction. So this is not the first time we've had a conjunction of Saturn and Pluto and had some sort of plague that we were dealing with back in the 80s. You probably remember, as I do, that was the AIDS epidemic.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, and that was, we didn't know. I mean, people were dying very quickly. And, they'd have the Kaposi sarcoma on their face. And then a couple of months later or a couple of weeks later, they were dead. Nobody knew how it was happening, what was happening. So there was, I remember the fear. I remember the fear of those days.
Yeah, I should share a memory of that now that you've raised it. I was going through university and I was being taught politics, political science at that time, or a unit on political science by an American lecturer. And I remember him so very clearly, because one of the things that we did was analyse that AIDS information campaign. In Australia here, we had the Grim Reaper coming out as a way of trying to instill that fear into people that they needed to do the right thing.
Right.
But it really equaled AIDS and death. And the Grim Reaper is such a heavy, image to be used in a commercial ad campaign. So much fear, so much fear.
Well, Saturn rules fear.
Okay.
And one of the archetypes associated with Saturn is the Grim Reaper, as is the archetype associated with Pluto.
Yep. Yeah.
So these are two archetypes of transformation. And of course, the most profound transformation that we go through is death. Right. And then that process of losing people. And so it was kind of it was all set up. And really, in order for us to move to another level of consciousness and experience and understanding our co-creative abilities, we had to see the structures, the oppressive structures of power.
Absolutely.
For what
they
were.
And on that, if you look at the polarity, you've got that moon in Leo being self-expression, and being out there. And when I look at what's happened so sadly in the US, that people are putting their right to self-express themselves and not wear masks above the health and the well-being and the life of their relatives, I can't help but go to, that Neptune in Pisces in that 11th house. Yes, it's a virus signature, but it is about, being under those delusions. And going back to your Mars in Sagittarius, it's like we had to go through this. It's like, as you say, the universe gave us this in order to right the ship, if I can put it like that.
Right. And the idea that part of the whole Aquarian age, which we'll talk about when we get to the Saturn Jupiter conjunction that's happening on solstice, is an equality. It's not about up down, power on the top and lots of people disempowered on the bottom. It's about equality. And there's nothing more equalizing than something like COVID, because it shows us that no matter who we are, if we don't if we don't consider our actions and the actions of we have to live together. It's a small planet. We have a lot of people on this planet. And we have to learn how to live not just with each other, but with the planet itself, which is something that's going to definitely raise its head come 2021.
Yes.
And it is already. I mean, it's silly to say that 2021 is going to do it, because America and Australia has been on fire when they weren't under flood. I mean,
Yes, I think the climate is going to really be in focus in 2021. And I should say also, we are talking about, 2020, a very hard, heavy year where we had to dig down and look at our core truths and then bring them out of that sea chest and really act on them in order to get the change that happened. The Biden administration, obviously with John Kerry as the climate envoy, has already started to impact here back in Australia. People are joining on to the climate change, climate management agenda now, where they weren't before under Trump. There are big climate change forums happening, chaired, I think, or not chaired, but the UK Boris Johnson is involved in that. It's a big global gathering, and our Australian Prime Minister, who literally brought a lump of coal into the Parliament and has really stymied renewables, he wants a speaking slot at that climate conference, and they're still deliberating whether to give it to him or not, because we may not meet our emissions targets because of our current government. They wanted to do some creative dancing to try and meet those, and the world was appalled that this would be happening, but in Australia after the fires. So things are starting to change in a very subtle way, and that's good, and that's what your US election did in terms of climate. Whether there will be any real reforms is yet to be seen. We can maybe pull cards on that later, Vicki.
Right. So I think some of the lessons learned from this year with this giant stellium, and then of course we have to see that Mercury, which is the planet that rules the lungs, is here, and the sun. And so the sun always brings, of course, it's the largest thing in the solar system. It brings things up, and we have to look at them. This is stuff that we have to look at. And these planets, not the sun and Mercury, but Pluto and Saturn and Jupiter, for the most part, were in Capricorn all year, except for a moment when Saturn went into Aquarius.
Yes.
But for the most part, and this is very, very heavy. This is as heavy as it gets, I think.
Yeah.
When it comes to energy.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, people asked why didn't readers see the virus coming? Well, I know you were doing, and I were doing readings on this astrological formation here, and saying that something was coming in 2020, and it was going to test us all. So I want to ask you also, Uranus in Taurus, in that first house there. What does that tell us?
Well, I think it's a couple of things. Of course, Uranus spends about 7 years in a sign. And so whatever themes that sign brings up, of course, Taurus is the earth. And so we see Uranus, sudden change. Things are very extreme with Uranus. So we'll see sudden sort of earth changes or climate changes, we could say. But also Taurus is money. And to a certain extent, the economy and our resources. And one of the things that we've had to do through this period, I think, is be more resourceful. Like the usual places where we would get our resources, we had to learn how to live differently or how to be more resourceful. And then Taurus is also our essential needs. And so crisis brings out what is really truly important and what we really need in our lives. And I think that informed the year as well.
Yes. And of course, Taurus is all about persistence and will. And so to overcome this, whatever was chucked at us coming out of left field that we didn't expect a global pandemic, we were going to have to bunker down and work through it. The only way through it is through it.
Right. Nobody wants to hear that.
No, they don't.
It's true.
It's difficult. But when you look at that chart, to me, that, it reconfirms that this was something that was, there for us to make the changes that we needed to make throughout 2020. And, while we don't want to bring Sideshow into the reading, a good deal of turning away from him was his total and utter incompetence and greed-fueled way he handled a global pandemic.
Yes.
And where we are, part of that chart was, you better be careful. And I think I said this in a reading, because right now in January 2020, when this is occurring, you will reap what you sow. Watch the seeds that you plant, because you will reap that. And I think that he is now reaping what he sowed all year in the way that he handled the pandemic in the US. We look at that, and we are also very sad that it is happening to you. And I got a very moving letter, email this morning from one of my viewers. And it was just, it really hit home to me just how difficult it is there with the pandemic and the way it's been handled. Without giving anything away, her neighbours are involved in the medical field. They're partying on one side. They ought to know better. She has been hunkered down since March. How do you explain to children and grandchildren what is going on with these people that should know better? And just how sad that makes her feel. And for us watching, there's a lot of I don't know, sympathy, if that's the right word, for what has occurred in the US.
Yeah. It's been I just, lucky enough to live in a state where where we listen to science. It's like one of the top science states in the country. So if we're not listening, who's going to listen? But it's still, I feel bad for the frontline workers, the doctors, nurses, the people. I mean, this is a wound that's going to take a long time to heal, because a lot of people haven't had an opportunity to mourn.
It's like that post-traumatic stress syndrome that happens after some incredibly difficult, tragic, life-changing events. It unravels over the next 2 or 3 years, which is why I'm pretty confident that justice will be done ultimately. And I think that the people, those senators, and particularly people like Lindsey Graham, I think they know that justice will be done as well, that the truth will be outed, because I don't think healing can occur until it is.
Right. Yeah, they're not going to be able to push things under the rug the way they've previously done. People won't stand for it.
No.
People
Did you want to do you want to pull on what lessons, just maybe 3 or 4 cards of what lessons we might have learned from 2020?
All right, I'm pulling, but you do it first, and then I'll do it.
All right. Okay. All righty.
First.
Me first. Okay. What lessons? Well, you went first with the astrology, so.
I did, yeah.
Okay. What lessons have we learned? What lessons did we learn? The collective. What was there for us in 2020 that we needed to know? 3 or 4 cards. Thanks, Spirit. What did we need?
Oh.
So this is this inequality that I was talking about that had to be highlighted. It had to be realigned. It had to be. And the challenge, of course, was the illusion and delusion. So here we have our first signifier cards. We have justice. Justice was thwarted and challenged by this illusion and delusion. And what happens to people when they see that, when they see that occurring? It's a really deep wound that justice was perverted through this peddling or gaslighting of not just America. I mean, our own politicians do this here in Australia. But I know what happens with justice. When you take something away, you have to get it back. When something is taken away like that and inflicts a wound, there has to be an evening. It's an evening up of the scales. It's cause and effect, which is why I'm confident that justice will occur. Just 1 or 2 more cards, and healing will as well. We've got moderation and temperance. And this is the December associated with Sagittarius. So I think this December month is like really, really, it is key to this justice occurring, because we've got this seeing what was deceiving, what the lies, the deceit. And no more powerful is what has occurred during the pandemic. And I did a reading the other day, and I really didn't want to do it, but I did it because what I saw in Trump not ordering enough dosages was quite dark there, tied in with profits and control. And the election loss thwarted and stopped that plan. So it's like I just still cannot get over that relief that that Biden is coming in, because one of our news readers was interviewing one of your American, I'm not sure whether he was a politician, I can't recall, but they actually said that now the president is the most powerful person in the world, and I often rail against that. But in terms of a superpower, in terms of influence, in terms of the ability to get things done and stop things happening, we are only a middle power here in Australia. So we do look to the US, and for us to see what was going on there created a level of uncertainty and fear in us as well. So relieved still. And it's been, nearly over a month since your election, and I still have this peaceful, relieved feeling, knowing that there's hard work coming up in the future. But yeah, incredible change of events.
So I got and I just got these cards, so I haven't worked with them before. It's the Elemental Power deck. So why not, right? First one. So the first thing is, this is, I believe this is the King of Cups.
Oh, wow. That's beautiful.
Aren't they beautiful? Yeah. So this seems to me like, as a lesson learned, right? The lesson of compassion, the lesson of, and there was a lot of compassion. There was actually a lot of healing that occurred. I think of, the Black Lives Matter stuff, and the fact that before George Floyd, you couldn't even say Black Lives Matter. And suddenly it became a thing you could say, not in every place, but you could say it. So there was actually quite a bit of healing in that. I feel like people actually walked in the moccasins of other people, maybe for the first time. And, I'm a pretty liberal person, but I'm quite white. So I have white privilege, and I didn't, even myself, who has never really been a prejudiced individual and don't judge people by the skin color, didn't know the depth of what it meant to be Black, right? Because you don't know, you're not in the skin, So for me, it was, for somebody as liberal as myself, it was eye-opening. So I think there was like many levels of healing with that. And then we have the Seven of Wands. This is the ability to fight back, to, like, no matter what, people still went out, they were macing them, and the protesters still came out. So there was still willingness to fight for what is right. And then we have the Judgment card.
Yeah.
The Judgment card. And so there's this sense of waking up to something that we hadn't been awoken to yet. And in this card, it looks like, it's hard to see. Let's see. It's like all this stuff underground. There's like all kinds of bones, and there's a book, and there's
what's below the streetscape has arisen, and it's not a nice sight.
No, it's like a lot of junk and a lot of garbage and a lot of waste, and how we utilize our resources. In this country, the most powerful, richest country, our system, our health system is a mess. Of course, it's been a mess for years, but nobody wanted to do anything about it, right? So, but now we see, and then we get the Fool, which is about
beautiful cards,
right? Aren't they cool? A new beginning. And then the Nine of Cups. And so I feel like there's two messages in the Nine of Cups. Be careful what you wish for, because you might just get it, right? The America wished for somebody different, and somebody who was going to save us, and somebody who was going to fix all the problems, right? So he's like, oh, let's do that. But also the Nine of Cups is an appreciation that where you put your energy and what you wish for does manifest itself. You just have to make sure you're putting your energy in the right place. Because, you know, a lot of time has been spent giving attention to sideshow Don, when the attention, like he sucked the air out of the room or the world, right? So that lesson, I think, is something that we can take back. Don't give him your attention.
Yeah, it's interesting though. He got a lot of that attention from where I'm sitting in Australia. He got a lot of that attention because he was the president of the United States. So here in Australia, before your election, they were still covering his, I'm just going to call it nonsense. After the election, they became more, it was incredible to watch. The media here in Australia became more judgmental of him, became more willing to say at the end of the phrase, of course, this has been disputed. You know, it's that Twitter thing at the bottom of his tweets. They started doing that after he lost the election. So this is why he is so vindictive, upset, won't do anything, clocked off, gone, making money, doesn't care what he does or who he hurts. Because that's the loss to him. He knows that on November the 3rd, he lost his power.
Yeah. And
I am encouraged to see people like Letitia James stand up today and say, myself and other attorneys have signed on and we're taking action against the Facebook monopoly and what they might have done to be anti-competitive in the past. And what that could result in is the breaking up of Facebook to deconstruct really its power and the role that it played. So I think I'm encouraged to look at our next chart, Vicki, which is the 21st of December, the heralding. Some call it the grand reset. Some call it the beginning of the age of Aquarius. Some call it, like me, a beginning and a very valuable beginning. So let's take a look.
Okay, let me just pull that one up. Okay, here we go. So I have, this is the chart. This is the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction that's occurring on our winter solstice and your summer solstice.
Yes.
But I did it for 0 degrees of Aries, so we can sort of see where everything sits with this.
Yes.
And of course, it's going to be in the 11th house because that's the Aquarius house. But this is very very powerful for a number of reasons. Number one, this starts like a 150-year cycle of these 20-year conjunctions. These occur every 20 years, happening in air signs. So they previously, except for 1980, happened in Earth. In 1980, it was in, I think, Libra. In 2000, 20 years after that, it was in Taurus. And that was the last time it was going to be in an Earth sign. And Saturn and Jupiter deal with how society is structured. What is it based upon? How does it expand itself, and how does it create structures for that expansion? And of course, Aquarius is very much technologically driven. So technology is and even now technology is taking with this whole COVID thing, technology is sort of taking the lead. Science is taking the lead.
Yes.
Also, Aquarius rules astrology. So you're going to be seeing a lot more of us out there, and people are going to start to understand on a level that they didn't understand before. Right? They're going to realize there's more connections, and we actually have more agency in how we're going to utilize our energy, I would say. And the fact that this occurs on a solstice, this year we had an eclipse on the other solstice, my summer, your winter. And now this, on the other side, your summer, my winter, we have this eclipse of of the two social planets in the sign of Aquarius. And, you know, there are a lot of people saying, this is the beginning of the age of Aquarius. Well, the age of Aquarius, it's a transitional time. So moving more into that Aquarian energy. What I think it is that people are going to become more aware. And over this next 20 years, that awareness is going to expand.
Yeah, well, we've got Venus in Sagittarius up there in that 9th house, which is, you know, which is just fantastic about sharing knowledge.
Yes.
So
And a love of truth.
absolutely,
A love of truth.
absolutely. And then you go down to the 3rd house, and we've got the North Node in Gemini. So in some ways, we're being pulled away from what deluded us in 2020 and focusing very much on the facts, because the virus signature is still there in the 12th house. We have to. We have been brought to the table, whether we were willing or whether we were unwilling. We are now at the table, and we are listening to the facts and to science. So to me, that movement of Saturn and Jupiter into that 11th house in Aquarius is going to make a huge difference in 2021. We might just have a chance of solving our problems, because there are going to be lots of work to do, really, in 2021.
Right. One of the things that I try to stress to people when I talk about, you know, this new age and moving into this new energy is people are becoming more aware of their co-creative ability. And so we don't have to relive the old paradigm. We can throw the old paradigm away and create a new paradigm. We have the power to do that. We have the connectivity. And I know I certainly feel it when I'm working with other readers. There's a commonality and a thread, and almost like a thread of light that connects us all. And it's really like an intranet of light. That's what it feels like to me. And I think that this is, you know, further proof that that's the case. You know? And
I think
go ahead.
Sorry.
And the idea of Aquarius being humanitarian and progressive.
Yes.
And progressive, taking care of the least of us. I am my brother and sister's keeper. I am. And I don't have to, and this is about not feeding them. This is not about giving them fish. This is about teaching them how to fish. So if you can give everybody a level playing field of some sort, then we can all grow. And the people at the top no longer, you know, the Capricorn top down stuff, that's going to fall away because it's not going to be supported.
Yeah, you know, Moon in Cancer has played such a big role. The 4th house there is in the sign of Cancer. So this water energy, you talked about your beautiful King of Cups coming through in your past reading. It is about, you know, who's going to save us? It may not be government. It may be the not-for-profits who are running the food banks, who are handing out, you know, some, you know, whatever, you know, money when it's needed.
Right.
It will be all of us coming together and taking care of one another, because we have to. Because we have to.
And then we also have the specter of climate change. Even in this chart with Uranus, the ruler of Aquarius, squaring these two planets, and Uranus being in Taurus, as we spoke of, the earth changes and the climate changes and the things that are happening. You know, even if we stop doing everything bad today, there's still things that are going to happen. But if we work together, we will be able to come up with some pretty good solutions for that.
I actually see that as quite positive. I know that, you know, we're facing here in Australia another bushfire season. Have the lessons been learned from the last one? I'm not sure that they have. We haven't bought any more, big aeroplanes that carry lots of water. We decided, our government in its, I don't know what it was, decision making, decided not to go ahead with that recommendation. What is going to come back to burn us, really? But also Uranus in Taurus there. Taurus is about persistence.
Yes.
In that second house of possessions. It's like what I see with the global gathering that I talked about earlier, is actually, would that gathering have taken place last year and got prominence in the media? No, it may have taken place, but we wouldn't be reporting on it. So I do feel that, these great minds will come together. I see a lot of innovation being developed in relation to climate, to manage climate change. And I think in that second house, so ways to do things more effectively, efficiently, that don't damage the earth as much as what they have in the past. I think science informs us about climate change, but I think science is going to come up with some pretty startling innovation around how we can better manage that Capricornian energy, business, company, industry, and what we do to our earth. And I think the willpower is there to do that. Certainly that Jupiter and Saturn in Aquarius is going to challenge us to do things differently in relation to the climate. And again, you've got that special envoy running around the earth and visiting countries and pulling them a bit more into line than what they have been under Trump. Where did you want to take this, Vic? Did you want to do a reading? What did you want to do?
Why don't you pull some cards on 2021, and then I thought maybe we could look at the Tree of Life. Would that be?
Yes,
Because there's some significant things to talk about in that.
Yes, all right, let's do that. So maybe just get rid of my chart. Maybe just what are the key, what's coming forward in 2021 that is different from 2020? What is coming forward in 2021? I straight away got a pull to unity, a little bit more unity. I know that doesn't seem possible right now, but as we go along, it's almost like we have to. Let's have a look. What's happening in 2021? Show me spirit words. Yeah, there's space stuff going to happen as well. A lot of this innovation. I know Tesla has already launched some satellites, Wi-Fi satellites up there. I just think there's going to be more done in space in some way. It could also be too that I'm going to go out on a limb here and get a bit out of left field on you.
I love that.
I do think that some of us will start to connect with perhaps other civilizations on other planets.
Yep.
Through this third eye chakra, because that's what I saw. Be interesting. Yeah. Okay, so the Princess of Swords. So obviously there is this truth to emerge, this gradual unfolding of the truth that will really come out next year. People wonder if there's going to be justice. There will. We have the Queen of Wands. So we again have that stability coming through. I think we look to our females in power as well, to bring forward that truth. There's a Kamala Harris is there as well in there, but people like Letitia James are going to step out and step forward. Why? Because they've been empowered. What does that mean for people like us in Australia and England and the UK, I should say, and Canada? That will flow on. Just as it started to flow on now, it will start to flow on again. So I see feminine rising, and we've got the Queen of Cups. I think also there's going to be a huge lesson about nurturing ourselves. During post-traumatic or during traumatic events, we often forget ourselves and we forget that self-nurturing. But these are all women that I'm seeing in these cards. These are all queens bringing forward stability through right action, through action that's needed. And it's interesting, she's blue. She's the color blue, of course. So that's one more card, and the Two of Wands. This is where we get to needing to have patience, that it's not going to be miraculously trouble disappears in 2021. We do have to have patience, but we also have to have a plan that comes to fruition in the future. And I do see women being very instrumental in bringing forward that truth and objectivity and knowledge. Because at the base of the pack, we've got this dreadful wounding here, this Four of Swords, this illness, this virus, this pandemic, this is, the gaslighting, everything. And we've got the Justice card. So the energies at the base of the pack are very good for justice to be served. So I think that will definitely be a theme of 2021 in whatever form it takes. What did you get?
Okay, let me, oops, sorry. I'm doing stuff over here. Let's see, what did I get? I did pull some cards. I got the Strength card. I got the Strength card. So, there is it's strength is needed. Strength is needed for sure. But that we will have strength within ourselves. This is the King of Wands.
Oh, lovely leadership. Strong leadership.
Strong leadership, yeah.
But also, Vicki, confidence. Being able to step
Positivity.
out. Confidence. Exactly.
And a positive, I mean, even from, not that it's all about him, but when he started, his speech was like, this America is a terrible place. And it's like, what America are you talking about? So there was so much like negativity that like the idea of like just like buoyancy and that is like enough to like, it's such a difference, it's such a different worldview. It's non-transactional, right? It's, and not everybody has a price, everybody is priceless. I mean, I like that. Then I got the Five of Wands. So that's a certain amount of chaos, right?
Yeah.
Followed by the Death card. And so what that says to me is that chaos, well, the chaos and the Death card could be that we have to make sure we don't fall into that same chaotic energy that we had, but it could also be some sort of earth event that could be associated with an earth event, I think. And then we have the Eight of Swords, which is the Eight of Swords to me is like fear of doing the wrong thing or taking the wrong action. And so, but if you utilize your intuition, your feet, like if you allow the intuition to lead your feet, you'll lead your way out of that fear.
Yeah.
So it's a necessity to have a strong mind, but not a fearful mind.
Yes.
I think with that, I think that's
yeah.
So that's what I pulled. But I want to look at the Tree of Life, if that's okay, because there's some things on that. I know most people don't like look to the Tree of Life for this stuff, but I think that it's going to, and if I pick the right one, that is okay. Here we go. So just the Tree of Life is a way of connecting all different sort of things. You can put numbers on here. You can put planets on here. You can put you can overlay the chakra system here. You can put the elements. We have the elements here, the different elements. So what's interesting is that, and I'm going to make this a little bit closer because it's kind of hard to see. It's kind of far away. So this 2020, okay, was a 4 year. And 2020 was along this path. This is where we spent all of 2020. This was the universal year. And it's a 4 vibration. And 4 is about crisis. And 4 is about opportunity. And 4 is about building foundations.
Yes.
This is associated with the Emperor card. And so it's about dominion. What dominion, what do you have control over and what don't you have control over, right? How do you take charge of your life? Very, very Emperor, right? Are you going to give somebody else the power to, of life or death over you? Or are you going to take your power back? And so that was part of the energy of 2020. Of course, 2020 means 2020 vision. It means seeing things clearly, right? And the Hebrew letter associated with this is Heth, H-E-H, hey, hey. And it means window. And so it's almost like we had to look out the window because we weren't allowed outside. Like, you know what I mean? Like we were contained. 4 is the square, and 4 and the 4 contains us. So there's stricture when it comes to that energy. And then if you look at the chakras associated with this up here, this is the third eye chakra, associated with light, the element of light, I guess we could call it. And the heart chakra, Tiphereth. This is the present moment. This is beauty. This is light and wisdom. Okay. And so through this period, even though we've been through like really tough stuff, we've been bestowed with a lot of information, a lot of wisdom, a lot of, even the readers out there who are doing the readings like you and I are sharing what we know. And it's not just, is Trump going to be president or not? It was other things that,
Yeah.
So it's like the light is shining down, and it was necessary for us to speak and see through the third eye and the heart. Now in 2021, the vibration changes to a 5. And 5 is about change, right? 5 is about change. 4, you're kind of stuck, but 5 is about movement and change, and to a certain extent, freedom. And that is located right here in Taurus. This is the Hierophant, right? Wisdom, tradition, and not like so much tradition like, well, it's always been done like this, but like we're going way back, like traditional wisdom, like mystery schools and those kind of things. That's the kind of stuff that's going to come up. Plus it's in Taurus, so it's connected to the earth, and Uranus is in Taurus. So not only is this the Hierophant, but Uranus sits here. Now it connects this place of light with the Sephiroth of mercy, of generosity and expansion. And it's located, the tree of life can be separated into the present moment, the future, and the past. And so this year is in the pillar of the past. And what I see is learning from the past is one of the things that you can take from that. But you can also take what you have learned in previous lifetimes and apply it in this year. This Sephiroth here, which is associated with Jupiter, which is going to be in Aquarius, right, is actually the place of the Akashic records. And so we're going to have more access to that stuff. This path is about listening to the inner voice, the small, still voice within.
Yes.
Right. And so that's what's going to lead us to freedom.
I see in that explanation that you've just given us, I see what some people refer to as an ascension, that on a spiritual level, when we move into that 5, we've got that opportunity to ascend in that way, to move into that higher mind, to have those connections that bring through the wisdom, that bring through the light, and that bring through new frequencies. I notice you've got sound there, right next to that. Yeah.
Of mercy.
Yeah, exactly. And again, the water energy that's coming through, I keep talking about that fire and water. They're coexisting. So we've got both the inspiration, the leadership, the confidence, but also the strength of the water and the flexibility of the water as well.
Right.
I see new vibrations coming through next year in this time of change, and people being, it's like 5 is very much a number to explore, to go out into those realms.
Right.
And I see people being willing to do that. Now that is, that is the opportunity for spiritual enlightenment
Right.
next year.
Yes. Yes. So, this is where, and I think that there's something that has yet to happen, that is going to happen with the eclipse that's happening in
Mm.
5 days. We have the eclipse happening on the 14th, which is very potent in Trump's chart. It's also the
Yeah,
day the Electoral College
yeah.
is votes. And then we have Saturn move into Aquarius. 2 days later, we have Jupiter move into Aquarius. And then a few days later, they make that conjunction.
Mm.
And then we also have Mars, which is now moving forward, making, the only aspect it makes in December is a square to Pluto. And it's a square of questioning authority. And it's a square of, it's a rebellious square. It's about letting go of the need to be ruled and to become self-ruling. And in order to be free, in order to truly be free, you have to be responsible. 100% freedom equals 100% responsibility. And that's something I think we're going to learn in 2021 as we
Yeah.
move into that 5 freedom vibration. Those people who will do their due diligence are going to feel freer, and those who continue to want to stay in the victim role, that they don't have any power, will stay there. And the interesting thing about that path is the Hebrew letter for the 5 path, for the Hierophant, is vow, which means nail, right?
Mm.
So things are going to get nailed down. So you got to
Yes.
decide.
Yes.
You got to decide whether you're going to be, nailed to the cross, or
Mm.
you know what I'm saying, or you're going to build something with that nail, right?
There's going to be a lot of victims come 2021, and I think we're going to start to see the beginnings of it. You mentioned something occurring that was out of the ordinary on December the 14th. The
Yeah.
only thing that could be with the Electoral College, because I know we'll get questions on it, is if some of those electors are faithless. However, I keep stressing that the Supreme Court ruled in July that electors, regardless of what states they are in, this is the SCOTUS, right? Your Supreme Court ruled that electors must be faithful. So with the court cases failing, with the states certifying and moving past your safe harbour deadline, with all these challenges to the state Supreme Courts and also to the SCOTUS failing, a faithless elector will be going against the Supreme Court ruling. So I can't see a path. But what I do see, I can't see a pathway forward for Trump. But what I do see is he's going to try it, that maybe they're going to try it on. What do you see might occur on the 14th? What were you thinking? Where was your intuition taking you?
Well, this particular eclipse is at 24 degrees of Sagittarius, which is Donald Trump's South Node. And so the South Node is your past. And in his case, it's in his 4th house of family and real estate. And I feel like the past will be exposed in some way. Something around his path. So there will be a tower moment. Of course, December is a tower year, is a tower vibration, because we have the 12th month and the universal year of 4. You add that together, that's 16/7, the tower. Trump's soul is a 16/7 tower. And so there's this, I feel like he's the one who's going to have I said it a while back that it's possible that he has his tower moment. And in that sacrifice, like he's almost like the sacrifice god, which I know people are going to get crazy about. But it's like his soul says, all right, I'm going to take this on, because we don't know what his soul is saying, right? We assume that he doesn't know anything, and in that he's a young soul and stuff, but he's in this position, and only he is in this position. And so I think his downfall might actually aid us in releasing a lot of the heaviness that we've been under, and sort of in a way raise us up to that just because he has so much energy around him. Even still now, it's decreasing. We can feel it decreasing, but if he just falls out, like out of and so I just feel like it's going to be like a push up for us.
So you see that once the Electoral College ratify those votes, that he's got no way forward. There's no path for him, and he may very well retreat to Mar-a-Lago. There are some saying that he will go there for Christmas and not return to the White House. I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised.
I never saw him finishing his term ever.
No, me neither.
I think the first time I did his cards, I got the 8 of Cups, and I'm like, he's leaving.
When I tune into his energy and the energy of his those around him, I see very, very dark days ahead. So I can't wait for that December 14th to be gone. It's also, I'm a Sagittarian, so I've got to look at my own chart and see what's happening there as well. So.
And it's still a new moon, so it's an opportunity to plant new seeds, new beliefs.
Yeah, yeah. So, look, just to sum up, I'm feeling that 2021 is a brand new beginning with a lot of potential that will unfold. It's a beginning, though. It's not a magic wand. But I am just embracing it. I just feel that we've come from such darkness, and there is, as you say, with that 5, the Hierophant, there is such possibility to what people would call ascend. I think the ground's going to be very fertile there for us to really tap into our spirituality. And as someone who holds that dear, that's very exciting for me.
Me too. Yeah.
So
I think the future is bright, Maryann.
I do. Yes. I do. I'm glad it's Biden and Harris doing that work, though.
Oh my goodness.
Because it's a lot of work.
Well, he has a lot of women in his cabinet, and he knows who does all the work, I think. Quite frankly. I mean, I don't know about you, but I find women do most of the work.
We can carry very, very heavy loads, can't we?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Vicki, for the reading. And I'll catch you again soon. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in.
Thank you, everyone. Namaste. Much love. And we're all going to be good. We're going to be okay.